Hi, my name is Joseph. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the process I went through to get my son's birth certificate and to get his first passport. He wasn't born in America. I am an American citizen, but my son was born in Tbilisi, Georgia. Georgia the country, not Georgia the state. We planned on doing that. It was exciting, it was fun. Times are changing. You can be anywhere in the world in 24 hours, and there's never been more opportunities to live the kind of life that you want to live, work where you want to work, have your children where you want to have them, have your children grow up where you want them to grow up. There's nothing that says you have to have your child in America, and there's nothing that says you have to live and work in America. The nomadic lifestyle, the digital nomad. I'm a property investor. Anyway, onto the paperwork. So to get to the child's first birth certificate, it's called the CRBA, the Consular Report of Birth Abroad. To get their first passport, you're going to file the DS-11. The actual process of having your child in another country is a little bit flexible. You don't have to show up and stay there the whole 9 months. You can show up the last 6 months, you could show up the last 3 months and then have your child. But once your child is born, you're kind of stuck in that country until you get your child's birth certificate that says he's an American, or my son, that he's an American citizen too, just like I am. I pass my citizenship down to him and get his passport. He can't travel, so we're stuck. There is some emergency documentation that you can get, but I don't know about that. I'm talking about just the regular procedure. I would say that you're going to be stuck for 8 weeks. You could probably get it to be less than that, and it might be more than that, but I'm going to share with you some of the mistakes that I made, and I'm pretty sure that's why it was 8 weeks instead of the 5 to 7 weeks. The first thing I recommend you do when you get into another country where you're going to have your child is to translate your passport and your spouse's passport into the local language. Think about how complicated it can get if you go to the hospital. They're going to make a translation of your name. They have to for their system, right? So if you go right to the hospital and start getting checkups and blood tests, they're going to have their own translation. And then later, when you start filing paperwork with the local government and you go get your passports translated, you have to be careful because you might get a different translation than the hospital gave, in my case, my spouse. So you can see why it would be a good idea just from the very beginning to get your passport and your spouse's passport translated into local language. That way, when you go to the hospital, you show them how it's spelled. When you go to pick up paperwork from the government, it's all spelled the same. Everything's on the same page. I will say a little note about when you get your child's passport at the very end and getting his name or her name spelled correctly in the local language. The appointment system for the embassy, it's probably not it's probably not my perception, it's the system that's changed, but I remember before it seemed like you could just walk into an embassy, flash your passport, and it was like a post office. But maybe times have changed now and you have to make an appointment. But at least in Tbilisi, Georgia, I had to make an appointment for the embassy. My feeling was that it was about 2 weeks out, that if I wanted to get an appointment, it would have to be 2 weeks early. I couldn't get it any sooner than that. The problem with the CRBA appointment, when you go to make it, it asks, when was your child born? I didn't know when he was going to be born. I could guess, but I didn't want to lie and then have my paperwork not match up and they cancel my entire appointment. This is like a 2-week wait, so I don't want to screw this up. So it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm at the hospital with my wife. She's in labor, and I'm like, he's got to be born tomorrow. And he was born at 3 a.m. It was 11 o'clock at night. We'd already been there for 12 hours. So I'm like, okay, get my phone out. I make an appointment, and sure enough, it puts the CRBA / first passport appointment at 15 days out. And you can file the CRBA and the DS-11, the first passport, simultaneously. They are done automatically together. In Georgia, when your baby's born, the baby's going to get a document from the hospital called the 100, and the mother's going to get 100 document. This is basically the document, the record in the hospital that says, what was this person doing here? So my son gets his 100 that says, this baby was born here. And the mother gets a 100 that says, she had a baby here. These are important documents because it links the mother to the hospital, the baby to the hospital, and it links the mother and the baby together. I take these two documents, I go to the central government office. In Georgia, it's called the Public Service Hall. Some people call it the Justice Hall. I don't know why they call it the Justice Hall. I don't think it's a court. But anyway, it's a big building. It's pretty well known. It looks like it has flowers as a roof, or it looks like it has mushroom as a roof. You go there, it took me 45 minutes. I had the birth certificate in the local language. I got his birth certificate that was in the local language, and I got the two 100s, one for the baby, one for the mommy, and I got those all translated into English while we waited for our appointment. Also, while we were waiting for the 15 days to be up and go for our appointment, was taking passport photos. I hate taking passport photos. I never do, and these were the worst passport photos I ever had to do in my life because it was a newborn baby. I think he was like 13 days or 12 days when we were taking these photos. We put him on a bed, put a towel around the back of his head to hold his head, looking straight at the camera. Then we put a white sheet on top of that, so it was a white background. Took about 100 photos, and then I took the 5 best to the passport photo guy down the street, and I said, can you pick 2 and print those out? I don't want to screw this up. I've never done my own photos before for passports, and I don't want to wait another 2 weeks. I don't want to screw up this appointment. We had no problems with the passport photos, by the way. The documents that you are going to be submitting are the DS 2029, that's the CRBA application. And I also submitted the DS 5507 that was saying that I was an American citizen. And the 2029 says I'm an American citizen. I'm transmuting my citizenship to my son because I'm a citizen. He's a citizen automatically. But the 5507 was asking for physical presence evidence. How can you prove that you actually were in the United States for a long enough time? I think some people, they're like born in America and then they leave when they're like 1 year old, and then now they can give the citizenship to their baby even though they've like never been in the United States except for like a long time ago. I'll talk about the documents in a second. On the appointment day, me, my wife, and my infant son, we go. Here's an important point, very important point for someone like me. I have questions. I like to take notes. I want to know what's going to happen when I come to pick the papers up. I got questions for you about that. You can't take a cell phone into the embassy. I had a lot of my questions written out on my phone, and I can't take it in there. I recommend that you write your notes out, you write your questions out, and write out some information on a piece of paper, and take a pen. Write your questions, but also take an address, have an address written down, a family that's in the country that you're staying in, the hotel, the Airbnb. They didn't need it, but they wanted it, they asked for it. I said I was gonna go pick up the CRBA and the first passport at the embassy. No, I don't want you sending the CRBA or the passport in the local mail. I'll go pick it up at the embassy. So that's what I told them, but they said no, still put down an address. Thankfully, I remembered the address for our Airbnb off the top of my head, so I wrote it down. Have an email. This is gonna be one of the first mistakes that I made, but have an email. I did write down my email on the form, on the CRBA, and then have a telephone number, a local phone number. I think you can put 2 phone numbers on there. I put down the local phone number I do have T-Mobile. I can get calls from America, from anywhere in the world, to my T-Mobile phone. The cost was $135 for his passport and $100 for his CRBA. They did accept credit card. A little side note is I did also submit a renewal application for my passport because I was down to like a page left. So I submitted the DS-82. I also paid $135 by American credit card, MasterCard, Visa. I don't know about Discover or American Express, stuff like that. I had also made an appointment for my passport, and while we were there submitting the CRBA application and the DS-11 first passport for my son, I said, hey, I have an appointment in a week. I don't want to come back to the embassy. It's a hassle. Can I just submit everything at the same time? Little side note, they said, sure, no problem. They canceled my passport appointment in a week, and they took all of our paperwork together. So the forms you're submitting are the 2029, DS 2029, the CRBA. On that form, they want to know who the father is, who the mother is, who is, if any or both of these people are U.S. citizens, and how they're going to pass that down to the child. You can say, oh yes, I'm a U.S. citizen, here's my passport, here's my birth certificate, here's my naturalization certificate. Then the DS-5507, I filled that out. So they wanted to know on both of these forms how long I had been in America physically and how long I had been out of America physically. Well, I've been traveling since I was 20 years old, and this is pretty complicated. I counted it up, it was like 14 times in America, 14 times out of America, and I thought, well, I don't want to screw up this appointment. So I got out Microsoft Word and I wrote my own form out because on the 2029 and the 5507 there wasn't enough space. So I filled those out, but I also made my own Microsoft Word document that said, I, Joseph Rittenhouse, do solemnly swear that the information provided by me on this document is true and accurate to the best of my ability. And I said, California, purpose of visit, residence. California, from this time to this time, purpose of visit, residence. Thailand, this time to this time, purpose of visit. Tourism, Mongolia, from this time to this time, purpose of visit. Employment. And I went back to like 1990, the 90s with that. I didn't sign it. When we actually went in for our appointment and I submitted the CRBA application and the passport application, she saw that and she said, oh, don't worry about the 5507, give me that, because it was so well written. It was 2 pages, top to bottom, front and back. And she had me sign it right there, and she took that. You have to be in America for physical presence 5 years. 2 of those years have to be after age 14. I didn't want to screw up my appointment, so I threw the entire kitchen sink at him. I brought my driver's license, my pilot license, my college degrees, junior college and the university. I took W-2s from jobs I had had in America. I took a Social Security statement in there. I think that was about it, to show that I'd been in America at least 5 years, and at least 2 of those years were after age 14. Let's talk about the email and phone for a second, because these are 2 of the places that I think I screwed up, and that's why it took me 8 weeks to get my son's CRBA and his passport. So remember on that form I wrote down my email. Well, the State Department has this website where you can partially fill out the passport application online. They got 2 cool websites. One website that helps you fill it out. You know, everything's typed. It's there on the screen. You make sure it's correct. You print out you get a PDF, you print it out, and there's a barcode at the top that they can scan. So what you wrote is exactly what they get in their system. Well, speaking of emails, I put my email on there and I thought, great. I know that they have a system that will update me and notify me when my CRBA, his passport, my passport have arrived at the embassy so I can go pick it up. And I thought that it would automatically go into the system just like everything else would automatically go in the system from this online form. It didn't. Now let me explain how I figured that out. So I thought it automatically goes into their system. I submit this paperwork for the first passport. And I had handwritten my email on the CRBA application, but a week after this appointment, I just went online and was checking out the status. They have another cool website that's called the Passport Status Update website, something like that. You put in your child's social security number, which is all zeros, because a newborn will have all zeros as their social security number. They won't get their social security card abroad. You go back to America to get that. It's date of birth. And there on the screen it says mailed for me. It says mailed. It's only been a week. And I was thinking it was mailed from here to America, from Georgia to America. And it says 3 days after I had submitted the paperwork, it was already mailed. And then I realized that meant mailed from America to the embassy. And I thought, oh, so the way the system works is they just scan the information, they scan the pictures, that goes to America, and his passport and his CRBA were already done in 3 days and were already on their way back to Georgia. I thought, wow, that's good because he's a newborn and I can't travel until I get these documents. On the status there it says mailed. Your documents were sent on the 3 days after we submitted them, basically is what it said. They were mailed. I thought, okay, but then I noticed at the bottom, the only reason it showed me this was because I had entered his data. The email part was missing. I recommend that you go in and you have to manually put in or check and make sure that your email pops up in the system. I typed in my email for his passport and my passport. Then I went back in and now they popped up in the system. They were in there. So that means this whole time my email did not automatically go into the system. But I thought, well, that's great. I have it in there now. It's been about a week. We went 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I'm waiting for it to say arrived or something like that. It just says mailed, mailed. It was mailed 3 days after you submitted it, mailed 3 days after you submitted it. Nothing was changing. I thought, does that mean it already arrived? I think it had already arrived. I was waiting for it to say arrived. Never updated. The phone number issue. So I use my local phone number in Georgia. I call the embassy, I get like a busy tone or the line doesn't work. And I thought, well, that figures. They're probably so busy. They don't want to answer calls. I'll just wait for that email. 6 weeks go by, 7 weeks go by, 8 weeks. I said, something's not right. I even paid expedited. I think I paid an extra $30 for the passport to be expedited. Something's not right. I just happened to use Skype. If you don't know, Skype is basically an internet phone. You can sign up for it and make phone calls on the internet using Wi-Fi. I just happened to use my Skype and I called using that phone number and it went through. I gave the lady the passport locator number, which is a number that shows you, or it helps them identify where your passport's at, and it helps them identify where my passport's at. And she was like, oh yeah, it's here. Your CRBA passport, they're here, and your passport's here as well. And I thought, what? That means they were probably here since like 5 weeks. And here I am at 8 weeks. So this is the big thing. Manually go in and make sure that your email is in the system. And if you can't get through with the phone after about 5 weeks, when you should be notified, call in. And if that doesn't work, try an internet phone. And if that doesn't work, try your American phone. And if that doesn't work, have someone call from America or something like that. But that's what I think is what got me the 8-week time period and why I was stuck. I mean, Georgia's a nice country, but I kind of wanted to get going. We'd already been there for 9 months. On pickup day, which was the same day, she said, you can come down here and pick it up right now. The pickup times end at like 4 p.m. I think. So we're like, oh, okay, taxi. It wasn't too late. We got in the taxi, we went down there. I took my old passport. Remember, you have to take your old passport and or your old passport card if you're gonna get a new one so they can stamp it and invalidate it. We went down there. My wife stayed outside. I went inside with the baby. Again, no phones. And there it was, the beautiful certificate, his CRBA, his first passport, and my renewed passport. Go over the names, the dates. It was all correct. A note about your child's first passport. I said, you know, talking about names. We're in Georgia already. I thought, you know, it'd be nice if we all have all of our names translated into the Georgian language before we leave here. I don't know how I'm going to find a Georgian translator in America. So I took his passport to get translated. There's these offices called the notary service. Not all of them translate. They all do notary services in Georgia, but they have a little sign that shows an inkwell pin. Those pins that suck up the ink, and it has them all in a circle. They're all over Tbilisi, and they can also translate. I took his new passport to them, and I said, wait, don't just translate his passport into Georgian. Here's his birth certificate, and here's his Hospital 100 with the translation of his name. So when you translate his passport, use how the hospital translated his name. So you see, I was trying to keep my name and my spouse's name the same, and trying to keep baby's name the same. That's a little side note. I hope that was useful. Congratulations on having your child, or maybe you're planning to have your child in another country. I think it's fun. It's interesting. In another video, I talked about how much it cost for the hospital, things like that. It was about $5,000 cash, not using health insurance. I don't have health insurance, just paid cash, about $5,000. Congratulations, have fun. And the process is a little bit intimidating. I hope that my information was helpful for you. What you're actually looking at right now is Yerevan. I'm in Yerevan, Armenia. We got his CRBA, we got his first passport, he got his first passport stamp, and we drove from Tbilisi, Georgia to Yerevan. From Yerevan, Armenia, goodbye. On pickup day, you're gonna pick up the CRBA inside of this folder. It's a beautiful certificate. And then this is actually my old passport that they whole stamped it and validated. The new passport looks exactly the same. It still has the electronic chip in it. This is actually the smaller size. For a period of time when I got the last passport, you could only get the small size. They stopped doing the large size, but now they started doing the large size again. So I asked for the large passport size for my son and the larger size for myself.